good day to everyone that is watching. Thanks for joining. So like Ronald said, I'm Don Warden. I work as the Director of Incident Response at Cybolt. We're going to spend about the next 30 to 35 minutes exploring how artificial intelligence is reshaping how we approach vulnerability assessments and penetration testing. This is geared for technical professionals and ethical hackers who want to take their skills to the next level, and it focuses a lot on the EC Council's CPENT certification. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get right into it. So vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, commonly known as VAPT, is a very comprehensive approach to evaluating an organization's security posture. Vulnerability assessment is the discovery phase, and it uses automated tools to identify known vulnerabilities like unpatched software, misconfigurations, or insecure services. And it will tell you what's potentially wrong. Penetration testing takes it further, and it simulates real-world attacks to actively exploit those vulnerabilities. And that helps you understand how they can be used against your environment. Together, these methods don't just show you what might be vulnerable, they can demonstrate what can be compromised and how severe the impact would be. For most organizations, though, they still separate these two or perform them infrequently, which limits their effectiveness in the fast-changing threat landscape. And that gap that AI is helping us close. So what are we missing? This is where we have to get honest with ourselves as cybersecurity professionals and as businesses, because even a seasoned security team often miss critical risks that never show up in traditional vulnerability scans or checklist style pen tests. So what is it? First, we miss zero-day threats and AI-generated exploits. Those aren't in the CVE feeds. They're being discovered and weaponized by attackers, sometimes even generated algorithmically. And traditional scanners and static rule-based tools just simply, they can't see them. Second, cloud-native misconfigurations. As more and more workloads and containers like Kubernetes and multi-cloud environments extend, our attack surface explodes in complexity. And the tools that were designed to test flat internal networks don't translate very well at all. Misconfigured IAM roles, exposed buckets, overly permissive service counts, these are all new entry points, and they're often overlooked in legacy VAPT processes. Third and most important, behavioral attack patterns. Things like lateral movement, chain privilege escalation, and persistence mechanisms don't always exploit a single CVE. They take advantage of weak architecture and poor detection logic. And these are attacks that fly underneath the radar because they're not technically vulnerabilities, they're just operational gaps. And that's where the traditional assessments fall short. They tell you what's wrong in a vacuum, but now how an attacker might exploit these weaknesses in a real-world scenario. This is exactly the kind of thinking that the CPENT is designed to teach. How to analyze an environment like an attacker, combine technical exploits with human decision-making, and simulate impact across a full kill chain. If your current assessments aren't surfacing these layers of risk, it's not because they're not there, it's because you're missing the behavioral context. And that's the gap we need to close. So the new threat landscape. Attackers are using AI to accelerate the reconnaissance, craft better payloads, and evade detections. And to counter this, we need professionals who understand both offensive and defensive AI capabilities. And that's one of the cornerstones of the modern VAPT certification tracks. So we have an evolving VAPT model. We're shifting from the traditional static test to ongoing validation models, and one that adapts as your environment changes and your risk surface evolves. The tools and skills taught in the CPENT will help you implement and evaluate these types of modern testing strategies. AI helps us better identify what exists in our environments, especially in the hybrid or cloud native infrastructure. and it reduces the noise and allows you to prioritize what's actually important. Advanced enumeration like this is key competency in the real-world red team operations. Rather than relying upon known exploits, AI enhances the tools to simulate adversary behaviors. It tests your response to lateral movement, the privilege escalation, and data exfiltration. And these are exactly the techniques that you will learn to master in the live cyber ranges that you see within the CPENT environments. But it's not just about finding vulnerabilities alone. It's about understanding which ones actually matter. And that's where AI helps us triage findings based upon the context, not just the severity scores. And this mindset is essential for the kind of high impact testing and reporting that's required in these CPENT level assessments. So let's walk through a recent real-world scenario where we applied an AI-enhanced red teaming approach for a client with a hybrid infrastructure. We ran a 30-day continuous engagement using AI-driven platforms that dynamically adjusted the tactics based upon the client's evolving defensive posture. And unlike traditional engagements that follow a rigid playbook, this system used behavioral modeling and environmental learning to decide the next steps, much like a real attacker would. We were able to discover exposed APIs. We leveraged misconfigurations and containerized workloads, and even chained together privilege escalation with lateral movement that had been missed by prior pen tests. The platform self-adapt, and it refined its tactics every time it encountered a blocked path or a new defensive control, and it maintains consistent pressure across the entire environment. The AI platform also automatically correlated the findings with the organization's business context, so it flags access to high-value systems like finance and research and development, not just by severity, but by impact. And this allowed the client's blue team to prioritize remediation based upon real risk, not just vulnerability count. On the back end, everything was logged, visualized, and fed directly into their SIEM and SOAR platforms. It enabled them to see continuous threat modeling and detection rule validation. This is the kind of adaptive red teaming. It's not just theoretical anymore, it's operational. And it's redefining how we assess and respond to risk. If you are looking to pursue an advanced certification or building advanced VAPT capabilities, this is the level of depth, context, and automation you need to be aiming to emulate. So traditional versus AI-enhanced VAPT. This slide highlights a few of the key differences in the approach and the outcomes. The Shift AI makes testing proactive, adaptive, and more aligned to business needs. If you're a technical professional or a pen tester looking to specialize in this space, then you should go after an advanced certification like CPENT to help support that transition. So building out your stack. The modern VAPT tools aren't just standalone anymore. They integrate directly with your automation pipelines and the threat response infrastructure. And understanding these integrations is a key part to an advanced offensive security training. So let's talk about tools. The tools that I have on here are not tools that I necessarily endorse. These are tools that I see frequently used within environments. So I want to make that disclaimer perfectly clear. There are alternatives out there for every one of these tools that are presented, and I make no endorsements whatsoever. So on the tooling, methodology is critical, but the right tooling accelerates your process. So the platforms that I have listed here represent some of the cutting edge of AI-enhanced offensive security. And they're not just vulnerability scanners. They allow you to simulate real attacker behavior, chain those exploits, and adapt as your defenses change. Pantera is focused on automated security validation, and it continuously probes your network using real attack engine that safely exploits vulnerabilities and misconfigurations. And it does it all without requiring agents or credentials. and it's ideal for validating real-world exposures, not just theoretical risk. Another one that you should look at is Bishop Fox Cosmos, and it's tailored for enterprise red teams. It combines automation with expert validation and provides persistent security testing across the entire external attack surfaces. And it's great for organizations that need a managed but highly advanced offensive security capability. Simulate, it delivers breach and attack simulation across email, endpoints, lateral movement, and cloud. What makes it so compelling is it has a modular approach. You can test specific attack vectors and run comprehensive scenarios. It also integrates well with existing SIEM and SOAR tools for automated response validation. And lastly, Infection Monkey is developed by Guardicore. It's an open source tool, and it simulates lateral movement and privilege escalation inside the environment. It's free, it's extensible, and excellent for internal testing or educational environments, especially useful if you're practicing for some of your CPENT scenarios. The key across all these is intelligence. These tools don't just run scripts, they adapt, learn, and are able to pivot. And they map the attack paths dynamically, and they provide the insights that would take weeks to gather manually. If you're studying for CPENT or building out your toolkit, I recommend not just learning these tools, but understanding how they make the decisions. That's the difference between using automation and mastering it. So certifications like CPENT are preparing practitioners to operate in this new era. And these skills go beyond basic scanning. They're about exploiting complexity and automating insight. CPENT includes live testing environments, scenario-based tasks, and advanced network and OS level exploits. Your VAPT role will evolve. You'll need to script, automate, and simulate. And this isn't about replacing humans. It's about empowering offensive engineers to scale impact through AI. And this is the vision that the CPENT supports. So building out your new strategy. My advice is start small, identify a high-risk area, and then layer in AI-based testing. Then start to expand the footprint. Use those findings to redefine and refine detection and response strategies in a continuous loop. And the CPENT certification teaches you how to build and operationalize these types of strategies. So let's pull it all together now. The security landscape has evolved, and threat actors are leveraging automation, AI, and behavioral detection at scale. Static point-in-time testing simply can't keep up with this level of speed and complexity. AI doesn't just speed up assessments, it changes how we test. It brings the ability to simulate adaptive attackers, analyze vast attack paths in real time, and triage findings based upon business impact. And that means fewer false positives, smarter prioritization, and faster remediations. We're not replacing the human testers, we're augmenting them. Human creativity, intuition, and context still matter. But when paired with AI, you gain the scale, persistence, and adaptability required to defend complex infrastructures effectively. If you're in the VAPT space, this is your inflection point. Organizations need offensive engineers who can blend automation, scripting, adversary emulation, and cloud testing into a unified skill set. The takeaway, modern VAPT isn't just a checkbox. It's continuous intelligence-driven process, and if you want to lead the future of offensive security, start integrating those tools and methods and skill sets now. Yeah, so Burp Suite are one of the products that you absolutely should take a look at. Like I described during the presentation, those are just some of the top ones that I see frequently within organizations. But Burp Suite certainly has the ability to do that. Metasploit Pro has the ability to do that. You could use other commercial tools like Qualys. There are a bunch of them that are out there. that would help you be able to determine what those vulnerabilities look like and help you on a VAPT scale. So what you're asking about is what we refer to as guardrails. So within the specific VAPT AI-driven tools that are typically on the market, those do have the guardrails that are built in. So a lot of people have misconceptions about how AI works. And until you start talking about agentic AI, what is in the tools today is not at that level of complexity and does not contain the ability to be able to do self-thinking. That's why the human element is still there to be able to interpret those results that AI helps to bring to the surface. And that last piece in the chain, the human, is actually the guardrail that keeps it from doing something that could be malicious. So typically how these tools work is that they're able to go in and take a snapshot of the environments. They'll run through an entire series of scanning internally, and they'll grab all of the different vulnerabilities that they see within those scans. One method that you might see organizations use to be able to load up those types of data would be Nessus, doing internal scans. So once they have the overall view of that environment, then they're able to go through and simulate, typically within a cloud, different types of attack vectors and how you would go and do the kill chains. Some do have feedback loops that can go through, and that again is where the blue teams get notified of what they're seeing as evolution of the attacks that are taking place. Most of the ones that work, all the ones that work in real time are going to have some sort of agent-based approach, so they can actively manipulate or work in correlation with EDR and provide that type of feedback to the endpoints to lock down any of those vulnerabilities. I'm not familiar that GitHub has that type of level of sophistication just yet. I think within the SecDevOps world, there are a lot of people that is top of their mind right now, how they can integrate that. I know there are a lot of CTOs out there who lose a lot of sleep about it, especially after some of the issues that have occurred within GitHub. But I think everyone is taking all that very, very slowly. So I think within the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to be looking at a total evolution of even what we think of as offensive security today. There's going to be entire teams, global teams, that are pitting their AI versus an adversary's AI. And we see that quite frequently today with nation-state threat actors, where they have the scale and the expertise to be able to go and utilize AI at scale and be able to attack specific vectors. Within the United States specifically, we have a lot of vulnerabilities within very critical infrastructure spaces, and there are people at work right now developing different ways to combat that utilizing AI. So I think in the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to see all-out cyber warfare that's going to be nation state versus nation state, corporation versus corporation potentially. The biggest challenge right now is that there are really no regulatory frameworks around the safe use. I know the Cloud Security Alliance is looking into that right now, and they are putting together a framework for how to safely utilize AI. And there will have to be some sort of legislation or even global body legislation where people come to an agreement about how they're not going to take advantage of the advanced techniques that AI can exploit. No, I think it's the latter. There's never going to be the need hopefully in our lifetimes, to where we get to a place where we are so reliant upon artificial intelligence that we feel comfortable enough to turn over the reins of control to AI completely. I think that the AI should be utilized as an augmentation of the humans, and allow the humans to be able to do the analysis that they are able to do. AI is able to do very repetitive tasks, be able to interpret patterns a lot quicker than human beings can. And so we have to figure out how to exploit the power and the strengths of AI, and pair that up with the power and the strengths that human brains have. So no, I don't think that they're going to eliminate human pen testers anytime soon. Yeah, so there are not a lot of free tools that are out there, unfortunately, and that's because that companies have to spend money on research and development to be able to develop their AI platforms. Now, you certainly have the ability to be able to build out your own AI that is point specific, helping you do your pen testing needs. I'm not aware of any matrix that exists today that will go and show all those tools that are available. I think the best thing to do would be to do some self-research and run it through. Companies that are reputable will be happy to point you to clients that are utilizing their tools, so that you can have discussions with them and understand what the strengths and the weaknesses really are in a real world scenario, and not just off of some marketing slick that a company is going to send out to people for consumption. No, I think it's extremely important for you to have a CMDB and to be able to look at the patterns that are occurring and be able to do the analysis and response with your SIM and SOAR tools. It should be, like I said, a constant feedback loop that you're able to utilize with the AI tools, providing those data streams into those environments and allowing you to be able to do the appropriate responses. Some of the SIM and SOAR tools are able to do automation of the playbook generation that will allow your teams to be able to continue to move forward and evolve in the way that they are able to, see those different types of patterns that are going to come across with all these evolving threats. Testing, like I described in the presentation, everything is still very stovepiped within a lot of different environments, and there's not a lot of data sharing that goes on there. Typically, developers like to have really, really open spaces to be able to go do their work, and I think that having that segmentation and following traditional SecDevOps strategy on where you're actually coding and how you're testing your code versus the live production system is extremely important. A lot of companies are how can I put this nicely? I can't. A lot of companies are cheap, or they want to do it on the cheap, and they'll only have two different environments. They'll have their development environment, and it bleeds very heavily into their production environment, and that's where you start to see a lot of the trouble happen, because those development environments are extremely wide open and they're exploitable, and if they're tied in any way into your production systems, then you're obviously at risk. So I think there needs to be some operational discipline from the business that comes from the top, that they understand what their risk is if they allow, for those types of environments to continue to exist within their infrastructure. So I think that's where you need to have the integration of all those different data points that I talked about. In some of my previous presentations, we talked about having integration with a lot of different data sources, so that the more data that you have to work off of, the better, and the less false positives that you're going to have. So loading up as much data as you can, and continuously running that through a loop and making sure that everything is legitimate is extremely important. So you're never going to get to a point where you build out that system and you turn it on and it's going to be perfect. It's going to be continuous. It's always going to be continuous. And that's where the AI comes in, because the AI can go through and it can look at all those different false positives that you mentioned and run that against what it knows about what it's seen, and also look at the data and interpolate all that across all those different data streams. And it can do that at speed and scale, whereas a traditional SOC analyst having to go and do that, it would potentially take them an hour. And AI can shorten that time down to milliseconds or seconds and allow you to be able to make a decision very rapidly. So that's kind of where I see all that going, and that's how you get past a lot of the false positive problem. Most of them do. I think that the statistics are extremely clear about what happens to a company if they are compromised and they are a victim of a cybersecurity event. The statistics are very, very sobering. Most small businesses will go out of business within 6 months. Larger businesses take all kinds of reputational hit that can have long-term impacts. So you have to be selling and talking and having those discussions, not just in the technical pits of people, because they don't care and they don't understand what the business risks look like. You need to be having conversations with, C-level folks. You need to be talking to the chief risk officer about these types of problems. You need to be talking to the chief financial officer about these types of problems. What is the impact to your company financially should you be subjected to a cybersecurity event? That's a career limiting move for most people. So in most companies. So the conversation has definitely changed over the last 3 to 5 years on, what you're having a discussion with and who you're having a discussion with. I think the who is more important, because I think a lot of times people in technology tend to shield those in the upper layers of management as to what's going on, because they're concerned that they might be seen as the cause of the problem. But the real problem is that they may not have the budget to be able to effectively make those types of changes that need to happen. So to wrap that up, I would say you just need to be making sure you're having the discussions with the right people within the business, and that you're able to clearly articulate what the risks look like within the environment and what that would equate to as a business limiting move for a company. Yeah, I do. As long as it's been around, Wireshark is still one of the top tools that people rely upon to be able to help them get down and see exactly what's happening within the packets. And I think there's definitely going to be a utilization of AI to be able to do the analysis of those Wireshark data. It's going to be extremely helpful, and it'll feed more into that pipeline that I talked about, and having that multiple streams of data to allow you to have a better analysis footprint. So yeah, I do. They can do the automated pen testing, but it still relies upon humans, and there is no true automated pen testing without humans, right? Because the humans know how to load up the right data that the AI needs to be able to go and do its job. Once they get the AI in there, then it can start to, look at all the different exploits. But no, I don't think so right now. Well, it depends on what you're trying to achieve, right? So every one of those tools have a different thing that they're trying to help you exploit and figure out how to solve the problem. So it's like comparing apples to oranges. they're totally different tools. They all have different types of focus that they're looking at. I think in some instances you're going to have to layer in, like you said, those 3 tools into your tool chest and figure out how utilizing your semi-store tools to be able to ingest all those data to be able to make the intelligent decisions, have that go back into the feedback loop, back into those tools, so that you can have a continuous loop to be able to evolve. So how, like I described a little bit in the presentation, AI tools are going to be utilized to simulate 0 days because they're going to go and be able to do rapid chain type events that we see within different types of breaches. And it's going to be able to simulate those same type of attack chains that we see threat actors utilizing all the time. And it can do that a lot faster than a human can do it, right? So you have to think about most threat actors have a dwell time now of, it used to be 6 weeks. Now threat actors, we see all that time shortening down to as small as 12 hours in an environment. If you can go and if you're a pen tester, let's say, or an offensive security person, and you're able to spend 12 hours inside an environment, imagine what you could do if you had artificial intelligence to be able to do all those things. So the scary part for me about AI is that if threat actors are able to utilize the advanced scripting capabilities and do all the things that they're able to do in 12 hours or less now, what's going to happen when they have control of different types of AI? And they do to some extent. And that's why it's important for those of us that are trying to protect to have the similar type tools. It's like, bringing a knife to a gunfight, right? We have to have the similar tools. So that's what I think. Well, it depends on what type of man-in-the-middle attack that you're doing. Most man-in-the-middle attacks are going to be perpetrated through DNS poisoning. So definitely make sure that you are taking a look at DNS and you have your DNS secure. As far as like wireline type of interpretation of data come across a wire, I don't know that there's anything that's going to be better than Wireshark right now. For over-the-air type of things, if you're talking about wireless, there are things like a Wi-Fi Pineapple that you could use to be able to do simulations of those types of attacks, where people do replays and allow them to perpetuate man-in-the-middle attacks. But most of them really boil down to DNS. Yeah, so just to make sure everyone understands what AI poisoning is. AI poisoning is where an adversary will go in and put in incorrect data into your artificial intelligence stream. So the artificial intelligence thinks that it's working off of legitimate data, but it's actually data that's been poisoned, so to speak, with bad results. Really, again, that's where humans come into play on this, and the analysis of all those different types of feedback loops where you're able to have those different checks and balances on what the artificial intelligence is doing, that you're doing periodic looks of the data that AI is utilizing, who's got access to those data. That's extremely important to make sure that's secure so that you can help reduce the possibility of the poisoning. Typically, it's that a lot of SIM tools are very closed off. So having the ability to be able to, let's say, utilize an API call to be able to ingest those data, that's really the biggest challenge when doing those types of integrations, because the SIM tools look at the utilization of AI right now as as a huge threat, and also a huge growth potential. So a lot of them are very hesitant to provide those types of hooks that you need to be able to utilize the artificial intelligence, because they would rather sell it themselves once they develop it. So that's really what I see, where the tools don't like to work nicely together. So they can. Again, I go back to my answer on a question about 10 minutes ago, where we were talking about where there are really no type of regulatory frameworks around how AI fits into everything today. So if you think about all the basic regulatory frameworks that people might want to look at, NIST frameworks, etc., there are no mentions of AI. But like I said, there are organizations like the Cloud Security Alliance that are trying to be on the vanguard of that and get in front of the problem. I'm certain that NIST is probably thinking about how they can, get AI integrated, because it's an important problem, and it's right now. It's not a future problem that they need to worry about in a year or 2 years. It's a problem right now. So I think you're going to see that kind of constant evolution where, those frameworks start to integrate AI into place, to where you've got the ability to go and do the type of audits that you need to do to be able to, have your regulatory compliance around the utilization of artificial intelligence. Yeah, I would just say that, we can't stay still as the attackers continue to evolve. We have to continue to evolve with them, and our tools have to evolve too. So it's not just about the traditional way of finding all the vulnerabilities that we have. It's about understanding how they're exploited and being able to do it at scale and in real time. And that's where AI comes to play on this. So, it just helps us build smarter defenders, and the next generation of security starts with us. So let's go get them.